Now, consistency. You want to come at me? Ooh, ooh. All right, so I asked a question on Twitter and I asked, what the frickin' hell does consistency mean, right? Like, what is consistency in golf? And boy, did the question blow up or did it blow up? So I basically just asked everyone, what does it mean? What does it mean when someone says, you know, I just want to be more consistent? I, as a coach, would like to know from the student, what do you mean? And some of the responses were pretty good, and some of them were very much a head scratcher. Now, the point of this video is not to have a go at anybody. It is just literally to educate you all out there what my opinion is on consistency. Does it exist? Does it not exist? If you've got a different take to me, pop your stuff in the comments below and let's get chatting. Now, before I dive into everything, let me just be quite clear with you. I understand what players mean when they say consistency. They basically mean that they want to stop the blow-up holes. They want to stop having one good nine and one bad nine. But more than anything, what they really want is to hit better shots more often. They don't want a thin one, then fat one, then slice one, then hook one. They want to be, again, they want to be consistent. I understand what they're talking about, but as you'll know, getting further into this video, that I don't believe consistency exists in golf. However, again, I understand what you mean, but let's have a little bit of a chat about it. So think about this for a second. We play the game of golf outside at the mercy of Mother Nature. Our conditions that we play on are literally ever changing. Have you played in the morning where it started to rain and then it started to fine up and then it started to get a little bit windy and then a little bit cold, a little bit warm? Gotta take my jumper off, gotta put my jumper back on. So your conditions that you were just playing in were inconsistent. How do you play consistent golf in inconsistent conditions? So let's have a quick chat about what things make the game of golf inconsistent. So let's start with the golf course. Obviously the weather, we've just spoken about that. We have different lies pretty much every day. You might drive it into the middle of the fairway and it finds a little bit of weedy grass, or it might be in someone's divot. It might be on a good lie, it might be not so good. The flag locations, for the most part, are pretty different from day to day. We literally have a different yardage into the hole any given day. So you might have played yesterday and had 123 yards into the hole, and today you hit your tee shot and had 131 yards. That's a different yardage. So let's talk about course conditions. Club championships. Your golf course is at the peak of how good it can be. Yet on a Monday, it's rubbish. Now, of course, if you're at a private club, get in touch. I do coach the game for a living. But in all seriousness, the golf course can change day to day. Some days the golf course isn't mown, it's not maintained, the bunkers haven't been raked, some days they have. So we are playing on an environment and in an environment that is super inconsistent. So once again, ask yourself the question, I want to be more consistent. You're pushing shit uphill there. What about yourself? Are you consistent? How did you sleep last night versus the night before versus the night before? Chances are Saturday, little bit dusty. Yeah? Sunday wasn't a very good day for you. Popping a couple of those pills, a little bit of Panadol, a little bit of water, a lot of water. So if your sleep quality is different day to day, how do you expect your body to be the same day to day? What about work? Is this a busy time for you at work? Are you stressed out? Are you having family issues? Have you been invited to the other side of the family for dinner that night and you kind of don't want to go? A little bit stressful, don't want to go. That affects your mood, that affects your body, it affects your decision making. What about body soreness? Did you hit the gym yesterday? Did you surf like I did 2 days ago for the first time and couldn't feel my body for 2 days? Which means our flexibility is going to change day to day. I was for sure way tighter after surfing than I was before surfing. So that's going to affect my swing. It's going to affect the length I can actually swing back. It's probably going to affect my timing as well. What about a warm-up? Did you have a warm-up, or did you go up to the clubhouse with old Bob, Steve and Greg and have 6 beers before your tee off? Instead of that muesli bar that's been sitting in your bag for 2 weeks, did you once again go up and get a pie? Did you go get a hot dog? Really nutritious food that will get you through the day, which, you know, you'll have all that energy come holes 12, 13, 14, where you normally have a blow-up hole. Maybe you've had a bad front nine and old Dave and Steve, hey, you want a couple more beers? Yeah, go on then. And then all of a sudden you kind of fall over at hole 15 and, man, I'm inconsistent. No, you're not. You're consistent. You do it every Saturday. So what about some uncontrollables? You might have putted well last week and everything fell in. Great speed control. And then this week, they just all kept lipping out. We have days like that. Once again, the greens you putt on are inconsistent. Maybe you hit the ball into a bunker, it got caught up in the wind, and instead of coming out of its plug mark, you've got that fried egg. And then all of a sudden, instead of yesterday where you got up and down out of the good lie, you thin it over the green and you end up in the rough. Or maybe yesterday you were sitting on top of the rough. Maybe today you're sitting on the bottom of the rough. So as you can see, in my opinion, consistency doesn't exist. Now, I would word it a little bit different than, I just want to be more consistent. How about we word it as, I currently suck and I'd like to be better. In fact, did you know you're already consistent in what you do? How so, Ryan? How am I consistent? I hit shots everywhere. Funny you asked. Let's have a chat about it. So you currently hit a 40-yard slice, okay? 90% of the time, your golf ball goes from left to right, into the hazard, into the woods, whatever it might be. Now, if that's happening all the time, or for the majority of the time, you are by definition consistent. So you don't actually want consistency, do you? Because you currently have consistency. You 3-putt 3 times in a round consistently. You flum 5 chips every round consistently. So you are consistent. So you don't want to be consistent. How many times have I said consistent in one sentence? What you actually want to be is better. So let's now ask ourselves, why am I not as good as I want to be? So the first thing I would say is, where and who are you learning from? Are you scrolling through a bunch of coaches' Instagram accounts, trying to find the best tip for you? Are you watching a ton of YouTube content on how to fix your slice? Are you trying every tip that you come across? You head to the range, you try it, oh, look at that, it doesn't work. You're trying to find the secret sauce that doesn't exist. Now, if we are going to talk about secret sauce though, here's what I'd recommend. Ketchup and mustard. It's probably the best combination you'll ever find. Now, are you coaching yourself, or have you hired a coach or an expert coach to help you with your issues? The worst thing you can do, and trust me, I'm a golf coach. I don't even coach myself. I hate coaching myself. I can't do it. So if I can't coach myself, I'm not saying you can't, but I'm just saying I would advise hiring an expert coach to help you. Otherwise, you're going to continue going round in circles. Are you practicing? No. Not are you hitting balls, are you practicing? There's a big difference between hitting balls at the driving range and actually practicing what you should be to improve. Now, most golfers that complain about not being consistent, you know, the ones that go for one lesson, hey mate, how can I help you? Well, I just want to be more consistent. That's the look us coaches give those players who come in for literally one lesson and want to be more consistent. So if you're coming in for one lesson and not doing the work, you're essentially fluking a good round of golf, aren't you? You're not actually working towards making a better game for yourself or improving your swing technique in order to hit better shots. You are literally going out on a Saturday, hoping that your one game a week produces a really good result. And then obviously next week you might go out and have an absolute horrendous result. So which one should you have? Well, you haven't worked for that one, you fluked it, and you haven't worked for this one. So that's kind of where you should be, or maybe you should just be in the middle somewhere. Either way, you're inconsistent. And you're inconsistent because you don't put any work in. Now let me rephrase that. You're not inconsistent, you're just not that good. Even if you are good, you are still going to have that really good round and that really bad round, whether you practice or not. Now, one of the other reasons you might think you're not consistent is due to the expectations that you have. Now, after asking everyone, what is consistency to you? I got a bunch of different responses. The question just went out of control. Everyone had a response, some good, some not so good. And I will just make everyone aware, once again, I am not having a go at anyone here. I'm just trying to educate those of you who think that you want to be or that you can be more consistent. The game of golf is inconsistent. All you want to do is be better. You don't want to be more consistent, you just want to be better. So let's talk about some of these responses that I got. So one player said they want to take one side of the golf course out of play. Now, I'm not sure if you're aware, but even the best golfers in the world miss it left and right. If you're trying to fade the golf ball, you will aim left. Now, if it doesn't fade, as you've probably experienced once or twice in your golfing life, you hit a pull, which misses left. That's the left side of the course. The other one goes to the right. You block it. You miss it both sides. So every golfer on the planet will miss it both sides. Now, maybe you have a golf swing which misses to the right the majority of the time. So let's say you miss it 40 yards right, and maybe you miss it 20 yards left. Well, your dispersion pattern looks less to the left and more to the right. Some players might be a drawer of the golf ball and they overdraw the ball. Maybe they miss it 40 yards to the left and 10 or 20 yards to the right. They are still missing both sides. They are still missing both sides of the golf course. Another question was, I don't want 35 on the front and 45 on the back. The reality is, 2 9 holes are different. Maybe this 9 has 2 par 3s that are 130 yards and 160 yards. Maybe this 9 holes has a 200 yard par 3 and a 220 yard par 3. The 2 9 holes you play are not the same. Have you ever said to your buddies, I reckon the front 9's harder than the back 9? And they've gone, no, the back 9's definitely harder than the front 9. Well, if the front 9's harder than the back 9, then how are you expecting to shoot 2 35s if the front 9's harder than the back 9 and the back 9's harder than the front 9? That doesn't make sense. So by definition, you can't have consistent scores on both 9s if you're already saying one's harder than the other. Someone also said consistent ball striking. I don't actually know what that means. Does that mean I want to hit a 5-yard draw literally every time I hit a golf ball? That's really hard to do. Now, someone also said they're tired of hitting the ball out of bounds. They're missing it massively out to the right or even massively out to the left. They said consistent swings keep the ball in play. Inconsistent swings hit the ball out of play. No. Better technique and better swings keep the ball in play. Bad technique, bad swings hit the ball out of play. That has got nothing to do with consistency. Someone also said they want the swing mechanics to be the same for every shot. It's just not possible. Have you ever been on a TrackMan and tried to produce the exact same numbers as the swing before? It is literally impossible. The golf course does not allow us, based on our lie, based on where we've got to hit the ball. What if you're trying to hit it over a tree? You've got a friggin' massive tree over there. You're going to move the ball position forward. You're going to lean the body back and you're going to try and sweep it off the turf instead of trying to lean it and, create this big divot. Well, why would you be trying to hit the same shot when you've got to go over a tree? Your golf swing has to adapt when it's on the golf course. Again, I don't want to be consistent. I want to hit the shot that is required at the time. That is called adapting. There's just too many golfers out there with the wrong expectations. So here's a couple of things that you should be expecting no matter what golfer you are, whether you are a tour player, whether you are a club golfer, whether you're a 30 marker. These expectations need to be met with every single golfer on the planet. You will miss the ball both ways. There is no question about that. However, right now, if you're missing the ball 50 yards left and then the next shot is 50 yards right, number one, it's not that you're inconsistent, it's that you're not that good. You need to improve your technique and the reasons why you hit it so far left and so far right. So once you improve your technical elements, you can then start to say, well, I only miss it 35 yards left and 35 yards right. And all of a sudden we've got a 70-yard dispersion pattern. That is called improving our game. That's called improving our golf swing so that we can hit more functional shots. That's not to say that we're going to start hitting it in a 5-yard dispersion pattern. It's literally impossible. But all we're trying to do is improve that dispersion pattern. That was one of the big responses with players, is basically what they were trying to do is to reduce that dispersion pattern. And again, I will say this again, that doesn't mean you're inconsistent. Doesn't mean you're trying to chase consistency. You are just trying to hit the ball better. You will literally have two different nines. As I said just before, one nine's easier than the other nine. One nine's longer than the other nine. The front nine has longer par threes than the back nine. Now, also think about the mentality that you've got when it comes to two separate nines. When do you reset yourself? When do you go to the clubhouse and grab a bit of a bite to eat, grab a drink? When do you do that? Oh, well, wait a minute, it's after 9 holes. So the mentality around 9 holes is that you reset after 9. Why don't you try and reset after 4 when you've started double, double, triple, double? No, I'm not talking about an In-N-Out burger. I'm talking about starting your round off double, double, triple, double. So why wouldn't you just reset on the 5th hole? Why do you have to wait till 9? So the reset button that you hit needs to start a little earlier. That's why everyone's going, well, I have 1-9 as this score and 1-9 as that score. What about changing it to the first 3 holes? I had this score for 3 holes. I had this score for the next 3. You get the gist. Now, this is probably the biggest one here. And this is one that I wish I had learned when I was younger. Being able to adapt your golf swing when you're on the golf course. So what do I mean by that? Well, as I spoke about before, what if we've got to go over a tree? You can't have the same angle of attack and the same shaft lean and the same golf swing as if you're trying to hit a stock shot into a par 4. You're going to have to move that ball position up in your stance, which changes the low point, which changes the angle of attack, which changes the loft you're delivering to the golf ball, which potentially changes your path and your club face. Every time you have a different shot on the golf course, which is literally every shot, your golf swing needs to adapt that the lie the golf ball is sitting on. If it's a thin lie, you might have to put the ball back a little bit. That affects angle of attack, that affects dynamic loft, that affects path, that affects face. What if you're into the wind? Maybe you've got to put that ball back again. What if you're downwind? What if you want to hit a driver really high in the air? Maybe you put the ball position really far forward. Maybe you set your spine angle back. That's going to increase angle of attack, dynamic loft, shaft lean, all of this kind of stuff. So for those sitting there saying you want to do the same swing every time, no, you don't. You don't want the same swing every time. I don't want the same swing every time. I want my golf swing to perform when I need it to on the golf course. I need it to come to the party when I need to hit a fade around a tree because I've driven it into the crap. You want your swing to be able to adapt to the conditions on the golf course. You do not want your swing to be consistent. You want it to be consistently inconsistent. And you want it to be able to adapt. I'm gonna say it, I'm just gonna keep saying it, adapt. And finally, your best round versus your worst round are probably going to have between 15 and 20 shots as a difference. So when you see tour players on TV who have just shot 61, I can guarantee you if you go and look at their scorecards throughout the year, somewhere in there is like a 75 or a 77. That's a difference of what did I say? 61 less 77 equals, that's a difference of 16 golf shots. So if you go out and you have 75, and then the next day you go and shoot 90, believe it or not, as annoying as that is, it's well within a range that should happen. 75 being a great game of golf for you. Did you know the average score of a 6 handicap is 82? Bet you thought it was 78, didn't you? No, it's 82. So again, your handicap is completely false anyway, because it's like your best 20 scores or something like that. So your expectations are so high. If you shoot 75 somewhere down the line or sometime in the year, you will probably shoot somewhere between 85 and 90, maybe even more. So enjoy the good round when you can, accept the bad one when it happens, and be okay with being somewhere in the middle, because that's essentially what's always going to happen in this game. Whew. So there you have it. Now, if you still think that you need to be consistent and that your golf swing doesn't need to adapt to the conditions, then I'm sorry, but I think you're beyond help. I think you should just continue doing what you're doing, keep searching for that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and sorry I couldn't help you. Now, if you are interested in being more, improving your bad shots, hitting some better shots, you can find me on the Skillest app, where I'm one of the coaches there, actually one of the top 5 coaches, and the link is in the description below. Thank you so much for listening to my rant. Done and dusted. Oh.